All right, pleased to be joined by Jack McMullen of Just Baseball. We're going to talk a little Reds in the Arizona Fall League today. Before we get to Jack, as always, Chatterbox Reds is presented by Deep South Commodities. Reminder that DSC is a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production, specializing in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. Thanks, as always, to our friends at DSC. All right, well, as mentioned, really excited to have Jack McMullen, one of the great guys in the baseball industry. Jack works for Just Baseball. If you don't know who they are, we'll talk a little bit more about what they do at the end. Also, play-by-play voice, co-play-by-play voices, I don't know the best way to say it, for the AAA Indianapolis Indians, the Pirates affiliate. And I think you also do some work for college in the summer and the fall.
Occasionally, yeah, some college basketball sprinkled in here and there. I love my Maction. I was in Maction for a while. So like those Tuesday night football games at Kent, like I love those. So that's what I was doing for a couple of years, but now it's really just baseball, basketball, and I don't know, spending time with family and friends because you don't really see much of them during the baseball season. That's what I've quickly realized.
All right. Well, I'm going to save a World Series pick for you at the end. We'll give your quick thoughts on the World Series, as that's kind of the bulk of, I'm sure, your coverage right now. But I was so excited because I saw that you were out in the Arizona Fall League, and I'm not sure if there's ever been a year where there's been more excitement in the Cincinnati Reds organization with the Arizona Fall League, just because the amount of big names that were out there. We were talking a little bit before we started, so I want to give you a chance to see some of that. But what are the vibes like in the Arizona Fall League? Because I know probably most of our listeners have never been to an Arizona Fall League game. Probably a lot of them have been to a spring training game, which is some of the games are held in the same facility. What's the vibes like out in Arizona?
It's weird, man. I'll tell you that. Cincinnati is, are they what, Glendale? They're the Glendale Desert Dogs. So they play their home games at Camelback Ranch, which is the spring training facility for the Dodgers and the White Sox. So there are, I think, 6 teams. Yeah, 5 teams, 5 organizations send a certain number of prospects to make up those 6 rosters, and they all play each other. So you're going to see matchups all the time because it's a 6-team league. You're playing essentially every day for a month. They use those spring training facilities. Having said that, spring training might be 20xing the attendance from the Arizona Fall League because at least spring training has the element of, hey, I know these guys. The Arizona Fall League, I think the Cincinnati Reds are like the only team where you can say, hey, I know these guys that were sent to the Arizona Fall League. There are some good prospects out there. I think there are about a dozen, maybe dozen and a half top 100 prospects on Just Baseball's list. But aside from that, it's typically guys that were hurt for the majority of the year that got healthy at the end and need to get additional work in, or guys that, maybe got off to a slow start and, there's an important 40-man decision, pending for that team's 40-man roster. So there are a lot of different elements, and typically it's not a top 10 prospect in baseball that, you're going to need to get extra reps. With injury, that opportunity comes sometimes. Not sure if the people listening saw Jackson Jobe appear out of the bullpen for the Tigers in the postseason, but Jackson Jobe is the top pitching prospect in all of baseball. And Jobe missed, I want to say, 2 months of the 2023 season. So in order to make up for some of that lost time, he went out to the Fall League and threw 20 innings. Having said all that, there are some good players out there, and nobody goes to these games. They're fired up when they draw 350 people to these games. And I will say the access as a fan is unparalleled. You can sit first row behind home. You can absolutely fry in the Arizona sunshine, and you can watch Matt McLain, Christian Encarnacion-Strand get swings that they couldn't have gotten during the MLB regular season or the MILB regular season.
What's in terms of like the competitiveness of these games? Do you have anything that you would like equate it to?
Good question. There are guys from each level that are here. So you will see guys from, 20-year-olds that finish the year in low A to 27-year-old relievers in AAA that need extra work. It's hard to say, oh, this is equivalent to a high A game. but that's probably the level because you're not getting the best at AAA. You're not getting the best at AA, but you are getting some of the best in low A and high A. So I would say it equates to probably somewhere between high A and AA. I would lean more high A, but it's just so spread out. I will say, for the sake of saving bullets for pitchers, you're not going to get many of your top flight arms in an organization. Chances are you're going to see a couple of journeyman relievers like 27, maybe even 28-year-old relief arms that get out there. And you see a lot of 2-inning spurts. You're not going to see a 6-inning start in the Arizona Fall League. Those are reserved for guys that need to get a 6-inning start under their belt. And there might be 1 to 2 guys out there over the course of a given Arizona Fall League in a given year. So the pitching quality is not that great, but I would say overall quality, it's probably adjacent to what you would see in Dayton.
What would you say in terms of the players and their I don't know the right way to they're yes, that's that Jack, you're the guy with the words. What's their buy-in to this?
Yeah, no, I was like, are you going to dance around it? Because are you going to ask oh, do they care or no? I was kind of thinking that too. I think the answer is for the most part yes, but it feels very spring training-y, where you can question some of their buy-in. It's just a matter of getting reps in. I think their big focus is being on the field. I don't think anyone's focus is, I want to hit 400 in the Arizona Fall League and win AFL MVP, and I want to win the Arizona Fall League championship. Go surprise Saguaros. I'm so excited for us as a team. I don't think anybody cares about that. I think they want to get theirs because they're competitors and they would prefer to hit a home run when they step into the batter's box. They would prefer to strike an opponent out when they step on the mound. But I do think it is a matter of feeling right at the end of the day and getting your work in. So I'd say the level of buy-in, the level of give a crap is probably lower than your typical minor league game. Having said that, there are some guys that really want to see if their stuff can play after a longer layoff. I just watched who I think is the second best pitching prospect in baseball behind Job, Andrew Painter of the Philadelphia Phillies. That guy hasn't thrown in a game setting in nearly 600 days. And I saw him back on the hill. He threw 2 innings because he just had Tommy John at a weird time during the 23 season. So he missed the entirety of 23 and the entirety of 24. I saw him throw 2 innings, first time in a game setting in 580-something days. And he hit 100 against the first hitter. And it's okay, that's a guy that wants to prove to himself that he's still got it. So I'd say it's a case-by-case basis. Overall, I'd equate it to spring training in terms of buy-in.
All right, let's ask you about some players that were out there. And the first that I'm going to ask you about is a guy that I know you didn't actually see. He's only played in 3 games, but when we talk about the Reds of the Arizona Fall League, most Reds fans are most interested in Matt McLain, who ended up missing the entire 2024 season, unfortunately, but it is exciting to see him playing games. He's only played in 3 games out there, has played well. I mean, he had a home run, hitting 444, 4 for 9 in those 3 games. Was scratched from the lineup. We have no news if it was actually an injury or just completely precautionary, or he didn't feel like playing. We honestly get no information on that. But I want to ask you, Jack, a twofold question.
Yep.
The first part being Matt McLain. I can't remember. I've tried to follow the Arizona Fall League the last several years as I've started covering the Reds more.
Yeah.
I don't think I remember a player like Matt McLain that was a pretty established big leaguer playing that wasn't in the Arizona Fall League for a rehab. I know Jeff McNeil was on a rehab assignment for the playoffs. Matt McLain was not on a rehab assignment. Was it strange to you that he was playing out there?
Not necessarily, because you can closely monitor him. And I do have a funny Jeff McNeil story for you real quick. McNeil appeared in his second of 2 games on his rehab assignment in Scottsdale. Same game as Andrew Painter, through the Phillies prospect that I was just talking about. And McNeil had a heckler, understandably so. He's a New York Met. He's, flirting with a batting title every single year. But the difference between a heckler in New York and a heckler at the Arizona Fall League, I don't think you realize how astounding it is until you're actually there. you can hear a couple of the chirps among 40,000 people. But among 200 to 300 people, you can hear everything. The entire ballpark can hear everything this guy was saying. And he was chirping McNeil when he was in the box and when he was in the on deck circle and even like when he was in the dugout. And I'm sitting there like, he's hearing all of this, right? And if he wanted to walk up to you, he knows exactly where you're sitting. He knows exactly who you are. So if you do go to the Arizona Fall League, I would recommend not heckling a player, albeit even if it's Jeff McNeil. But aside from that rehab, which was very unique in its own right, like you never see that kind of thing where a postseason team that's going to the CS sends a guy, to the Arizona Fall League as a rehab assignment. McLain, I think the options were, okay, you shut it down. You don't get any game reps. You go somewhere like the Dominican Winter League or the Puerto Rican Winter League and get those loosely monitored game reps, or you go to the Arizona Fall League where you get closely monitored game reps. I think it was a good decision for them. And even if he plays 6 games, that's 6 more games than he would have had under his belt if he just, chucked it up and said, hey, let's go into the offseason. Let's go hit in the cage and we'll get live batting practice done in January before I get to camp in February. He at least is seeing arms that are double to AAA caliber. I don't think success will mean anything. I don't think number of games will mean anything. Just the fact that he gets to see live pitching in 2024 is really important. And he's been really good in his first 9 ABs.
What's your thoughts on Matt McLain going forward? Because he feels like he's the one player that, if he could stay healthy, and it's a big, big if, just the Reds' ceiling goes so much higher with a healthy Matt McLain.
Yeah, I think he can. I don't want to I don't want to Sharpie an X factor in right now for 2025, but I do think that his presence and his success feels very X factor-ish to the Reds' postseason aspirations in 2025. Elly's going to be Elly. Candelario, you're saddled with, Green, Lodolo, if he's healthy. I think Lodolo is probably the other X factor there. But I view McLain as a guy that can really help spell a lot of the shortcomings of the 2024 Cincinnati Reds. And that kind of sucks to think about because you look at that team, it's like, oh yeah, there were patches of excitement. But think about how much higher our floor could have been with Matt McLain there the entire year. I don't know if you can say the same thing about Christian Encarnacion-Strand. I think his presence is a net positive. Don't get it twisted. But I do think McLain is a huge elevator. Yeah, the ceiling is great. He can be an all-star caliber second baseman wherever they, want to put him. But I think he elevates the Cincinnati Reds floor in a way that there really aren't many other people on the roster the way that, they could do that.
Well, next player on my list to ask you about was Christian Encarnacion-Strand. I know you did get to see him. He's looked really good in the AFL. Drove in 7 runs, hitting 500 out there as we record this. Another guy that just unfortunately barely played in 2024. When he played, he was hurt for part of it and just never got going. But I know you got this. I believe you got to see CES in the minor leagues a decent amount.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, a guy that is just absolutely raked at every single level that he's been at. What's kind of your overall takeaway on him and where he's at going into 2025 based on kind of, what you got to see?
I'm a huge fan of Christian Encarnacion-Strand. And the thing that makes me most excited about CES is he's not this insane reverse or this insane splits guy. Like, it's not like he needs to be in the lineup against lefties and then he's, brutal against right-handed pitching. He's arguably better against right-handed pitching in a right-on-right setting. So I think that this guy has the ability to be an everyday first baseman in Major League Baseball. We were starved of the opportunity to see him try and right the wrongs in 2024. And I think that probably left too sour of a taste in a lot of people's mouths. 23 should have been really encouraging. 22 is obviously encouraging. I think that this guy is a very good power bat. Are there some deficiencies that I'm sure he's going to try and clean up? Yeah, no doubt. Everybody has those. But, Candelario's presence helps curb some of the development that needs to happen with CES. But I think in 2 years, if Christian Encarnacion-Strand is the everyday first baseman for the Cincinnati Reds, you should be very happy with him. And what I didn't realize until I saw him live was just how big and strong this guy is. He's a physical specimen, and it's hard to pick up on TV with some of those guys. Like I just sat behind home and watched Jack Caglione exist, the Royals' first round pick, who was that 2 guy at Florida that everybody loved. He is a massive human being, and there are some guys that just pass the eye test with flying colors. Christian Encarnacion-Strand is not far off from passing the eye test with flying colors. He certainly passes the eye test.
Jack, let me ask you this. If you were the Cincinnati Reds, would you just play it? Would you roll the dice on CES taking either a first base or DH spot in 2025 and worry about other places?
Yeah, I probably would. You know, I think it's pretty important to scan what's going to happen in the free agent market this year. I think that this free agent market is going to be as weird as we've seen following baseball. When did you really start following baseball? And like, you feel like you could ID the year that you understood the free agent market? For me, it was probably 2014, 2015 when I was 16 years old. Like, I have more question marks coming into this offseason than I have in each of the last 10 because of the Bally to FanDuel conversions, because of the, like everybody crying poor essentially in ownership positions. Like there are so many things that fascinate me. Somebody's going to break the bank for Soto. Somebody's going to break the bank for Corbin Burns. What about everybody else? Willie Adames should be a $200 million player. He's not going to be. Is it going to be 150? Is it going to be 100? Is it going to be under 100? Jack Flaherty, this guy was really not good for 3 years, and then he was really good for 1 year. How much is he going to get paid? I think that there are some big dominoes that need to fall in this free agency class. If you realize that you can get a first baseman or you can get a power bat for cheap, way cheaper than you were anticipating, I'd do it. Like, if you feel like you don't need to put Tyler O'Neill in the outfield and you think that you can pay him to be an everyday DH and you get him 2 years, $13 million a year, you do that, no doubt. But if Tyler O'Neill is a $50 million player, then I would prefer to just run CES into the everyday DH role or everyday first base role and have a revolving door elsewhere. So I really think it's dependent on how the market shakes out and what the price of some of these 2-year contracts is going to be.
All right, a guy that outside of McLain and CES has really, I think, turned a lot of eyes, and he's a guy that's had such an interesting year as Edwin Arroyo.
Yeah.
Broke on the scene in spring training after kind of, I would say, somewhat disappointing 2023 in the minors. Had an incredible spring training, was opening so many eyes around the Reds. Then he gets hurt, misses the entire year, goes to the Arizona Fall League, and it's like he picked up exactly where he left off within spring training. Edwin Arroyo is a guy that kind of got forgotten about a little bit after the Luis Castillo trade because all the focus was on Noelvi Marte. Well, Noelvi Marte struggled this year mightily. And now the focus is back on Edwin Arroyo, who a lot of people at the time said was the premier prospect coming back in the Luis Castillo trade. It's kind of shifted all around. But what was your impression on Edwin Arroyo, as I think you got to see him as more than anyone else?
Yeah, he is a very, very high level defender. That was my immediate takeaway. And like he has the ability to play shortstop at the major league level. Obviously, the Cincinnati Reds do not need a shortstop at the major league level. Hopefully, they don't need one for the next decade and a half, but we'll see how all of that shakes out. But Arroyo is a firmly capable big league shortstop. That was my premier takeaway. My second takeaway is this guy looks far more comfortable in the box than I was expecting somebody that just missed an entire year to look. I would expect your timing to be a little weird, especially against guys in 1 inning spurts where I know they don't have prospect pedigree, but a lot of guys are throwing 96, 97 miles an hour out there. Like it's hard to sit for 6 months and then gear up for 97. He's making it look easier than it should. I'd say this is as impressive of an Arizona Fall League as you could have asked for Edwin Arroyo to this point. And I'm not setting the bar at this egregiously high place because, he's a guy that has looked young at points, but also missed the entirety of a season. I am I'm circling Arroyo going into 2025. What can you do in the upper minors to show me that, you can essentially take Santiago Espinal's role and elevate it significantly? Or are you going to get us a good starting pitcher because you turn into one of the better shortstop prospects in the National League? That is a huge thing to monitor going into 25.
Let me ask you this. Edwin Arroyo just barely got to Chattanooga at the end of 2023. Would you start him at triple or double A in 2025? We also want to remind you that you can call or text 988 anytime, day or night. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is a place to get support for anything related to mental health. Whether it's an immediate crisis, simply wanting to find out how to connect with care, or anything in between, it's a 100% confidential, secure, and anonymous way to reach out for help when you don't know where else to turn. To connect, call or text 988 or visit mantherapy.org to get help. It's okay not to be okay.
I'd start him at double just because of lost time. I think double is really important. And I think that league, that Southern League, is as pitcher friendly a league as we have in minor league baseball. League average OPS in the Southern League was about 100 points lower than it was in AAA in the International League. So I would throw him there against lower quality pitching, but against pitching that is, succeeding. And I would say, if he's getting killed there, you leave him for a little bit. The Southern League is just such a weird thing. Like if Chattanooga was in the Eastern League or even the Texas League in AA, I would say, get him there. He'll experience immediate success, and then get him up to Louisville. But the Southern League, like, it's harder to hit there than I think the International League for a 21-year-old guy. I would say start him in AA. If it seems like it is something with the baseball, something with the environment that is curbing his success, I think about even getting him up to AAA just to get away from that. I think he's going to hit the ground running regardless in AA, and I think it's a quick bump to AAA, but I would be kind of surprised if they started him in Louisville. I think he should start in AA, get his feet wet, and then get up to triple.
All right. Tyler Callihan, another offensive player that's played pretty well out in the Arizona Fall League. A guy the Reds have to make a decision on with the Rule 5 protection coming up. A guy that put up incredible numbers at Chattanooga after a slow first, I think, month of the year. The last 3 or 4 months of the year was incredible, although there was several injuries, which has probably been his biggest thing that's hampered him. But I don't know if the Reds are going to protect him or not. I lean they probably won't, just because I don't know if there's another team that's going to be able to keep him on a roster all year. But he is a really exciting player and looks like, at least to me, as a pretty pure hitter.
Doesn't he seem like he's the type to get taken and then returned? Like, he seems like the guy where it's like he gets selected in the Rule 5 draft. He goes through spring training with another team, and it's like, oh, you're just not going to make the roster. You're the 28th guy, and we only have 26 spots on opening day, so we got to send you back. And then the Reds make $50,000 from that. That is totally Tyler Callihan this year, I think. I think the production this past year was tantalizing enough for one of the 29 other organizations to say, you know what? Let's see if this guy can break camp with us. And if he doesn't, then he's back in a Cincinnati Reds uniform. Like Davison De Los Santos is the clear-cut, like, good example of that, who was taken by Cleveland, was so not big league ready. Cleveland was going to try and figure out a way to get him on the big league roster. And at the end of spring training, they were like, we just can't do it. So they return him to Arizona. He hits 40 homers this year in the minor leagues, and he's traded to Miami for AJ Puck. I'm not saying Callihan is that guy, because I think he is more big league ready than Davison De Los Santos is. I just wonder if he's fully ready to be on an MLB opening day roster. The answer is probably not. It's going to be very interesting. I wouldn't call it a bad decision if Cincinnati opted to add him to the 40-man roster. I think it's a legitimate roll of the dice if they don't, because there is a chance that somebody stashes him on the active roster for the entirety of the year. So certainly one of the better Rule 5 candidates in the league.
I'm going to make a mental note to clip this up in March 2025 when he gets returned. I'll be sure to
selected and returned.
Post it and say Jack, I call this. But no, I could totally see that. He'd be weird. He'd be a guy like I'd be like, man, I really hope he sucks in spring training because I really like him. Like I think he's definitely got the potential to be a big leaguer, but he is like right on that fringe cut line.
But that's the thing to root for. If the Reds don't protect him, you want him to suck in spring training. Like if he hits 050 in spring training, he's back and he's a Louisville bat, and you have the opportunity to add him when he's fully ready for the big leagues.
All right, another guy the pitching side that's really blown people away, and a guy that I think is almost at this point a lock to be protected in the Rule 5 just because of his arm, unless the Reds decided to maybe try to move him, is Luis Mey. You got to see him. This guy continues to impress.
Yeah, whoa, man. I'm not saying closer right now, but I'm saying like he has high leverage reliever stuff. I saw him run it up to 101. I think he's grabbed a 102 so far in the fall league at this point, but I know he's firmly in the triple digits with his heater, and that thing it's bullying guys that are at a lower level than him. And I think a guy like Luis Mey is somebody that can go out there and really succeed and really impress because he is seeing a lot of inferior bats. He's seeing some bats that are, low A, high A, just finished up. And it's, hey, I'm just going to beat you with 101 miles an hour because I have it. Development of a secondary is obviously important. And you would love for 101 to be complemented by a really good slider. And then all of a sudden that turns into an elite setup guy. But 101 plays at any level. If he figures out a way to dial into the strike zone and find the perimeter of the zone with 101, he can absolutely be good in the Reds bullpen next year. Not just in the Reds bullpen, but like a good piece of the Reds bullpen.
Interesting player. Career 7.1 walks per 9 innings in the minor leagues.
I know.
Not exactly what you're hoping for. Was able to have a ERA under 3 in 21 games at Double-A in his promotion, despite walking 7.4 batters per 9. But a guy that the talent is undeniable.
Yeah, I mean, what opponents hit under 200 against him. I've got that sample in Dayton this year. 29 innings, he walked 24, but opponents hit $147. Who was beating Luis Mey? Luis Mey was beating Luis Mey. So as long as he doesn't do that anymore, and again, very tall task. Like I'm asking a lot from a guy that has essentially beat himself the entirety of his minor league career. If he can figure out a way to lower that 7 walks per 9 to 5 walks per 9, you have a big league setup guy here.
All right, last player I'll ask you about. Really appreciate your time today, Jack. I know you didn't get to see him, but I know you have a lot of experience with him from your time in Indianapolis, and that's Conor Phillips, a guy that had as roller coaster of a season as probably anyone in professional baseball. Came into the year as a highly touted Reds prospect that had a nice little debut at the end of 2023, and everything went to crap for Conor Phillips as nicely as you can say it. Did rebound, had a couple nice starts at the end of the season down at AAA. Had one really, really good start in the Arizona Fall League, but then the next one got beat around. Do you have any takeaway on Conor Phillips? Because he's as perplexing of a player as I can ever remember in this Reds organization.
He was giving me migraines this year, I'll tell you that, because if I only saw one version of Conor Phillips this year, I'd have more closure. Like if I only saw the bad Conor Phillips this year, I'd be like, okay, yeah, just really bad year or whatever. But I saw a really bad Conor Phillips, and then I saw a really good Conor Phillips in Indianapolis at the end of the year too, and he came off. Was it the development list? Did he go on the dev list, or did he just get assigned to the complex and then came back?
He got assigned to the complex for 2 months, but never appeared in a game. So
there
was never any report of what happened for those 2 months. Was never put on any IL at all.
That's the thing. I would understand the development list, and it sounds like he essentially got dev listed without being dev listed. So that is the way that I contextualize Conor Phillips. You mentioned the one really good start. His 2 starts in the fall league so far: 4 scoreless, 2 hits, no walks, 7 Ks, and then 2 1/3, 6 hits, 8 runs, 2 homers, 2 walks, and 3 Ks. But I saw this guy couple times this year against Indianapolis, and I think both of them were home starts. I'm pulling them both up right now. Conor Phillips against Indy the first time, 4 1/3, 3 hits, walked 5 in those 4 1/3. And then I saw him 4 innings, 2 runs, 3 Ks, and no walks. I was very encouraged by the second one. And again, that came after the layoff. I got to talk to him in 23 after he had gotten up from Double-A and he was leading minor league baseball in strikeouts. And I loved my time with him. He's a very thoughtful guy. He's a very nice guy. This year, I'm not sure what happened because, and I can't like quantify this exactly, but I do know the gist that the fastball characteristics are very different. And I don't really know how a guy's fastball shape changes as much as it did with Conor Phillips from one year to the next. But this guy, it just seems like he's Captain Snowball. Like it just seems like starts snowballing on him very, very quickly. And I don't know. That's a really useful tool for a starting pitcher is the ability to compartmentalize. You walk 2 in the second inning. Let's go have a clean third. And it just was not the case for Conor Phillips this year. So I have no idea what the rhyme or reason was. And again, he gives me headaches. And you kind of gave me a headache bringing him up, man. Why'd you do that?
I'm a mean guy. I'm a mean guy. You just hope he's a guy like Brennan Williamson, who it makes no sense why it all of a sudden clicked for him, and he was able to get out of those snowballs. But everything always snowballed in him at AAA.
Yeah,
but somehow it just all clicked, and he was great. And unfortunately, he's had some injuries, but he's been incredibly successful in the big leagues.
Yeah, no, Williamson was a guy that I watched in AAA, and he was a very reactive pitcher. I saw him throw, gloves in the dugout, things like that. I would see him wear his frustration. I'm like, okay, this is snowballing 101 here. And then he gets up to the big leagues and has success. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. I guess I don't know ball, but let's roll with this. But no, it's it's fascinating to see some of those guys, and I'm totally with you. There doesn't need to be a rhyme or reason as to why it's good, but you just hope that at some point it's good and it fixes itself.
All right. Well, Jack, I really do appreciate your time. I'm going to ask you 2 more things to get you out of here. I got to ask you your thoughts on Terry Francona coming to the Reds. I'd love to have a national kind of guy perspective on this because I know this really threw a lot of people off nationally.
Yeah, what I would say is he would not get back into managing if he did not see a very positive spot. And I think that he found a phenomenal situation for himself. I know he's got a lot of love for that organization, but he inherits one of the best players in Major League Baseball, probably the second most electrifying player in Major League Baseball, only behind Ohtani. And he inherits a roster that has a lot of unknown pitching-wise, but a lot of depth pitching-wise, and a lot of unknown, but a lot of fun youth in the lineup. I think he sees a situation where they are at not a crossroads, but they're at the chance to, up their incline from steady to steep. And that really fires me up that Terry Francona saw that situation for the Cincinnati Reds and said, I want to be a part of that. Because again, he's not getting into a situation that stinks. If the White Sox came knocking at Terry Francona's door, it was like, hey, we need you to be the next skipper. He's hanging up because he doesn't need it. He's done. There are a lot of guys that are clamoring for a big league opportunity. Terry Francona was not in that situation. So I think he saw the right situation. And I would say if you had the pick of the litter in terms of managerial vacancies, Cincinnati is so far and away number 1.
Well, I love to hear that. I like to hear that because I feel that way. But you know what? Sometimes it's a little easy to have the red rose colored glasses on when you root for this team. But it's nice to hear that from someone else. All right. Well, as this podcast is released, the World Series starts tonight. The Yankees and the Dodgers. Jack, what's just kind of your quick thoughts on this series? One that I know a lot of people, Yankees, Dodgers, it's tired. I get that. I normally would kind of be that, but they haven't played each other in a World Series since 1981. Yankees, yeah. haven't been since 2009. Dodgers have only won one World Series, and it was the Mickey Mouse World Series. So you know what? I support it, and also to be quite honest, gambling on baseball kind of makes me not really care. Like I can enjoy anything.
No doubt. I'm not allowed to do it with a minor league job, but I would say I would be in hog heaven with this one. I think in terms of legacies and in terms of just like great players, what we're getting in this one is unmatched in the last decade. I mean, I'm trying to think about another matchup that brings the star power, and it doesn't, because there hasn't been a star in baseball maybe ever like Shohei Ohtani. Aaron Judge is the larger than life New York Yankee. Juan Soto is about to make $600 million. Giancarlo Stanton is still playoff Giancarlo. Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts are future first ballot Hall of Famers. I mentioned on a show earlier this week on the Just Baseball show, Mookie Betts is going to pass Derek Jeter in Baseball Reference Warrant B War next May, like next April or May. He's like a win behind. And I had no idea, but that's how good Mookie's been. I think these lineups are amazing top to bottom. And you think of the top three, right? Judge, Soto, Stanton, Ohtani, Betts, Freeman. The middle of it, pretty comparable, like a Gleyber Torres and an Austin Wells, who I know has been bad this postseason. But then you have, a Will Smith and a Max Muncy and a Tommy Edman, who just won NLCS MVP. You get the best pitcher remaining in the postseason and one of the best pitchers on the planet in Garrett Cole. You get the $300 million pitcher in Yoshinobu Yamamoto. There are so many storylines to follow in this one. I'm enveloped in it. I think it has the makings of an all-timer. And I know that we say that a lot, but I really do believe it. I've got, I think Dodgers in 7 is what I said. And I'm not married to it. I absolutely see a world that the Yankees can win this thing, but sometimes it's fun to see Bama, Georgia. Sometimes it's fun to see Goliath against Goliath.
Yeah, I don't want to see this 3 years in a row, but I'm excited about this. And yeah, I'm rooting for the 7. Give me the 7.
It's just so much better than Rangers D-backs, dude. Like, it's so much better than that. And like, no offense, like, and I love watching Corey Seager and I love watching Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte, but this is Yankees Dodgers. It's just different.
You need a David and a Goliath. Like, I would have liked to have seen D-backs Yankees, or maybe right. Rangers Dodgers would have almost kind of, I think, been a little more compelling.
For sure. But I would say, okay, so David versus Goliath is so far and away option A. Option B for me is Goliath versus Goliath, and then David versus David is so far down. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good.
I think that's a fair take. All right. So you guys just did an hour and 11-minute full World Series preview show on Just Baseball. So be sure to check that out. Jack, also tell everyone about all the stuff you guys do, the call up, where people can find you, and all the great stuff that you do, because I honestly, genuinely believe this and mean this. Just Baseball is the absolute best national coverage for baseball that you can get. So be sure to check out these guys. That's why I bring them on as many times as I can beg for them to come on.
And that's why Nick bought a hat. No, really, really appreciate that, man. Appreciate the kind words. Never ditch your local coverage, because nobody has their finger on the pulse of the Cincinnati Reds like Chatterbox and, like your local podcast. But I'd say if you're looking for something national, the Just Baseball show is a good thing to just keep tabs on what's happening around the league and get your survey look. If you want to dork out on some numbers, we bring that too. If you want to laugh, I feel like we do a decent job of bringing that. The call up is it's fun. I feel like that's kind of our educational show, and that's our prospect podcast, where we really help teach about the top 100 to 500 prospects in Major League Baseball, and what each organization has to look forward to. It's a fun one for me, because it's just like, it's optimistic every single time we hit the record button, which is fun. So yeah, those are my 2 pitches. Thank you for the plugs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jack, really appreciate your time. Enjoy the World Series, and hopefully you can get a little bit of rest before the winter meetings, which I know you guys will be ramping right back up for.
Yeah, dude, appreciate that, and go Reds next year. I'm locked into Tito and the gang.